The massive chamber stretched beyond what human eyes could easily grasp, its crystalline walls rising into darkness above while luminescent creatures moved in the shadows like living stars. Ambassador Marcus Reed stood at the center of it. All his simple gray suit looking plain against the spectacular display of alien life that surrounded him. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, converting thousands of different languages into something his mind could understand. Marcus had been Earth's choice for this moment, though he sometimes wondered if they had chosen him because he was expendable rather than capable. At 57, his weathered face showed the lines of someone who had spent decades in difficult negotiations, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Galactic Council's Tribunal chamber was older than human civilization, and the beings gathered here had been traveling between stars. When humans were still learning to make fire, the crystalline walls reflected creatures that defied description. Some floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles, their forms shifting like living gas. Others towered above him on multiple legs, their carapaces gleaming with natural armor that had evolved on worlds where diamonds were common stones. A few looked almost human until you noticed the extra arms or the way their eyes saw colors that had no names in any Earth language. The speaker of the council, a being that looked like it had been carved from living starlight, raised what might have been a hand. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft hum of life support systems keeping hundreds of different species alive in one space. Marcus felt the weight of their attention. Thousands of eyes and sensors and awareness focused on him and what he represented. "We are here," the speaker announced in a voice that sounded like music played on instruments made of light, "to determine whether the species known as humanity deserves recognition as a civilized member of the Galactic Council." The words echoed through the chamber, translated into forms that creatures without ears could understand. "The petition has been submitted by their representative, but serious concerns have been raised about their fitness for membership." Marcus nodded slightly, his hands clasped behind his back. He had known this moment would come from the day Earth received its first contact from the stars. Humanity had been observed, studied, and found wanting by civilizations that had solved problems his species was still struggling with. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and he was one man standing against the combined wisdom of the galaxy. The Arbiter stepped forward, or rather flowed forward since its crystalline form moved like liquid light given structure. This being would present the case against humanity, and Marcus had been warned that the Arbiter had never lost a case in 3,000 years of tribunal proceedings. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere like the sound of bells made from compressed starlight. "The species in question," the Arbiter began, "has shown a persistent inability to transcend their base nature despite having the cognitive capacity to do so. Their planet bears the scars of constant warfare, environmental destruction, and social chaos. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their own world multiple times over, yet they continue to point these weapons at each other. They have been given the gift of a habitable world, yet they poison its waters and burn its forests. They have been given the gift of consciousness, yet they use it primarily to find new ways to harm their own kind." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, translated into sounds that ranged from mechanical clicking to harmonious humming. Marcus listened without expression, though inside he felt the familiar weight of his species' failures. Everything the Arbiter said was true, and there was more evidence where that came from. "We have observed their history," the Arbiter continued, "and found it to be an unbroken chain of violence punctuated by brief periods of exhaustion. They call these periods peace, but they are merely times when they gather strength for the next conflict. Their greatest technological achievements have come from their efforts to destroy each other more efficiently. Their art celebrates violence, their stories glorify war, and their heroes are primarily those who have killed the most enemies." The chamber's lighting shifted as holographic displays materialized in the air around Marcus. Images of Earth's history played out in perfect detail, showing battlefields soaked in blood, cities reduced to rubble, and the slow death of entire ecosystems. The assembled delegates watched with what might have been disgust or pity, depending on their species' emotional range. A representative from the Hive Collective, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a jeweled spider, stepped forward. "We have studied this species extensively," it said in a voice that sounded like multiple creatures speaking in perfect unison. "They are trapped in a cycle of individualism that prevents them from achieving true civilization. They cannot think beyond their own immediate needs and desires. They are incapable of the unity necessary for interstellar society." Another delegate, this one from a species that had evolved in the gas clouds between stars, added its voice too. The chorus of disapproval. "Their emotional volatility makes them unsuitable for civilized discourse. They are driven by primitive instincts that they have never learned to control. They would bring chaos to any community they joined." Marcus stood quietly through it all, occasionally making notes on his tablet. The device looked absurdly primitive compared to the neural interfaces and quantum computers being used by other species, but it served his purposes. He watched the faces, or what passed for faces, of the beings around him. He saw certainty in their expressions, the comfortable confidence of those who had never doubted their own superiority. The Arbiter gestured to another display, this one showing Earth's environmental problems in devastating detail. "They have been given a world of incredible beauty and diversity, yet they treat it as a resource to be consumed rather than a home to be cherished. Species go extinct daily because of their actions. Their climate grows unstable because they cannot control their own consumption. They are a species that destroys rather than creates." The accusations continued for what felt like hours, each one more damning than the last. Marcus listened to the litany of humanity's failures without attempting to interrupt or object. He had come here knowing that everything they said would be true, at least from their perspective. Humanity was violent, short-sighted, and destructive. They had made mistakes that other species had either never made or had learned to avoid millions of years ago. As the formal accusations drew to a close, the speaker turned to Marcus. "Ambassador Red, you have heard the charges against your species. Before we proceed to judgment, you will be given the opportunity to present whatever defense you believe appropriate. We do not expect this to change the fundamental facts of the case, but fairness demands that you be heard." Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of billions of lives resting on his shoulders. Around him, the greatest minds in the galaxy waited to hear what one primitive human could possibly say in defense of the indefensible. The Arbiter's form shifted and brightened as it prepared to present the full case against humanity. Marcus watched the crystalline being with the detached interest of someone who had long ago accepted that this moment would come. Around him, the alien delegates leaned forward or adjusted their positions, ready to witness what they clearly expected to be a systematic dismantling of any argument for human civilization. "Let us examine the evidence methodically," the Arbiter announced, its voice carrying the authority of countless successful prosecutions. "The species known as humanity has existed in its current form for approximately 200,000 Earth years. In that time, they have demonstrated a consistent pattern of behavior that disqualifies them from membership in any civilized society." The holographic displays that had surrounded Marcus earlier now expanded to fill the entire chamber. The assembled delegates found themselves immersed in human history, watching as countless generations of Marcus's people made the same mistakes over and over again. The images began with primitive conflicts, humans with crude weapons fighting over territory and resources, and progressed through increasingly sophisticated methods of destroying one another. Their first organized civilizations, the Arbiter continued, were built on the foundation of slavery and conquest. They developed agriculture not to feed their people more efficiently, but to support larger armies. They invented writing not to preserve knowledge, but to keep records of their victories and defeats. Every major advancement in their early history was driven by their desire to dominate their neighbors. The displays showed the rise and fall of empires, each one built on the bones of the last. Marcus watched civilizations he had studied in school collapse into dust, their achievements forgotten in the chaos of their own making. The delegates around him made sounds of disapproval, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of disgust, a representative from the scaled empire, its reptilian features gleaming under the chamber's lights, spoke up. We have seen this pattern before in primitive species. They are trapped in what we call the dominance cycle, unable to progress beyond the territorial instincts that once helped them survive. Most species that cannot break free from this cycle destroy themselves before they develop space travel. Indeed, the Arbiter agreed. But humans have shown a remarkable ability to survive their own destructive impulses, which makes them even more dangerous. They have come close to extinction multiple times, yet they continue to repeat the same patterns. They have learned nothing from their mistakes. The displays shifted to show more recent history, focusing on the wars that had shaped the modern world. Marcus watched the images of trenches filled with poison gas, cities turned to ash by nuclear fire, and millions of people displaced by conflicts they had no part in starting. The alien delegates observed these scenes with what might have been clinical interest, studying humanity's failures like scientists examining a particularly virulent disease. Their 20th century alone, the Arbiter noted, saw them kill over 100 million of their own kind in organized warfare. They developed weapons of such destructive power that they could render their entire planet uninhabitable. Yet they built thousands of these weapons and pointed them at each other for decades. They called this policy mutual assured destruction, and somehow convinced themselves it was a path to peace. A delegate from the Void Nebula, its gaseous form rippling with what might have been amusement, added its voice to the discussion. They have eliminated most of their natural predators and overcome the diseases that once controlled their population. Yet they continue to fight each other as if they were still competing for scarce resources. They have the ability to feed their entire population, yet millions starve while others waste food on an industrial scale. The environmental evidence was equally damning. The displays showed Earth's changing climate, its polluted oceans, and the growing list of species that had been driven to extinction by human activity. Marcus watched forests disappear, coral reefs bleach white, and toxic waste spread across landscapes that had once been pristine. The assembled delegates witnessed the slow death of a world that had supported countless forms of life for billions of years. They have been given a world of incredible diversity, the Arbiter observed. Yet they treat it as a resource to be consumed rather than a home to be protected. They have caused what their own scientists call the sixth mass extinction, eliminating species at a rate not seen since the great asteroid impacts of their distant past. They know they are destroying their own life support systems, yet they continue to do so because stopping would require short-term economic sacrifice. Marcus made notes on his tablet as the evidence mounted. He had spent months preparing for this moment, studying not just the charges against humanity, but the societies that were making them. Each species represented in the chamber had their own history, their own path to whatever they had become. Some had evolved beyond individual consciousness, becoming collective minds that thought and acted as one. Others had developed technology that eliminated scarcity, making conflict over resources obsolete. Still others had expanded beyond their homeworlds so completely that they had forgotten what it meant to be tied to a single planet. The Hive Collective's representative spoke again, its multiple voices creating harmonies that human ears could barely process. We have achieved unity through the elimination of individual desire. Our society functions perfectly because no member can act against the collective good. We look at humanity and see chaos. Millions of individuals pulling in different directions, unable to coordinate their actions even when their survival depends on it. Their economic systems, added a delegate from the Crystal Rings, are based on the assumption that infinite growth is possible on a finite world. They have created artificial scarcity in the midst of abundance, allowing some to accumulate vast wealth while others lack basic necessities. They have built their entire civilization on unsustainable principles. The evidence continued to mount, each example more damning than the last. Marcus listened to descriptions of human trafficking, of wars fought over ideology, of children born into poverty in a world that had the resources to provide for everyone. He heard about the weapons his species had created, not just the obvious ones like nuclear bombs and chemical weapons, but the subtle ones like propaganda and psychological warfare. They have learned to manipulate their own minds, the Arbiter noted, creating systems of belief that justify their worst impulses. They have developed the ability to make lies seem like truth and truth seem like lies. They use this ability not to promote understanding, but to gain power over each other. The displays showed human societies divided against themselves, groups of people living in the same communities, but inhabiting completely different versions of reality. Marcus watched as his species' greatest gift, their ability to create and share stories, was turned into a weapon used to control and manipulate. Their art and entertainment, observed a delegate from the Singing Worlds, celebrates violence and conflict. Their heroes are warriors and conquerors. Their children are raised on stories that glorify destruction and domination. They have created a culture that makes peace seem boring and war seem glorious. As the formal presentation of evidence drew to a close, the Arbiter turned to face Marcus directly. Ambassador Reed, you have heard the charges against your species. You have seen the evidence of their failures. You have witnessed their history of violence, destruction, and chaos. The facts are clear and undeniable. Humanity has had thousands of years to outgrow their primitive instincts, yet they remain trapped in patterns of behavior that make them unsuitable for civilized society. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Marcus felt the weight of that silence, the expectation that he would now attempt to defend the indefensible. Around him, beings that had solved problems his species was still struggling with waited to hear what one human could possibly say in the face of such overwhelming evidence. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with something that might have been satisfaction. The prosecution rests, confident that no reasonable defense can be mounted against such clear evidence of unfitness for galactic citizenship. Marcus stood slowly, his simple gray suit a stark contrast to the magnificent beings surrounding him. The chamber held its breath, if such diverse creatures could be said to breathe at all. He looked around at the assembled delegates, meeting their various forms of visual perception with steady eyes that held no trace of the desperation they expected to see. "Honorable delegates," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space, "I thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my species. Before I begin, I have a simple question for all of you." He paused, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. "What do you know of sacrifice?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Several delegates shifted in their positions, their translator devices working to ensure they had understood correctly. The Arbiter's crystalline form flickered slightly, perhaps with surprise at the unexpected opening. "I ask this question," Marcus continued, "because I believe it goes to the heart of what civilization truly means. You have shown us evidence of humanity's failures, and I will not dispute the facts you have presented. We are violent, we are destructive, and we have made terrible mistakes. But I would like to tell you about something else, something that I believe you may have overlooked in your analysis." He gestured to his tablet, and a new set of images appeared in the chamber's holographic displays. These were different from the scenes of war and destruction that had filled the space moments. Instead, they showed individual humans in moments of quiet heroism, acts of kindness and courage that had gone unrecorded by history books. "This is a teacher named Anna," Marcus said, indicating a middle-aged woman in a simple classroom. "She works in what we call an inner-city school, teaching children who have been failed by almost every system in their society. She makes very little money, receives no recognition for her work, and deals with problems that would challenge beings far more advanced than herself. Yet she goes to work every day, not because she has to, but because she chooses to believe that these children deserve better." The image changed to show an elderly man sitting beside a hospital bed. This is Robert caring for his wife who no longer recognizes him due to a disease that has destroyed her memory. He has been doing this for 7 years, though she cannot remember his name and sometimes fears him as a stranger. He could place her in an institution and live comfortably, but he chooses to stay because he loves her, not because she can love him back. Marcus watched the faces of the delegates as they absorbed these images. You speak of our violence and our chaos, and you are right to do so. But you have missed something fundamental about what it means to be human. We are a species that has learned to care for those who cannot care for themselves, not because it provides any evolutionary advantage, but because we have decided that every individual life has value. The Hive Collective's representative made a sound that might have been dismissive. These are mere emotional responses, evolutionary artifacts that serve no purpose in a truly advanced society. Efficiency demands that resources be allocated to those who can contribute most to the collective good. And there, Marcus said, turning to face the insectoid being, is the difference between us. You see an efficiency where we see the essence of what makes consciousness valuable. You have achieved unity by eliminating choice. We have preserved choice even though it sometimes leads to chaos. The displays changed again, showing scenes of human creativity and artistic achievement. Musicians playing in empty halls because they loved the sound. Artists creating works that might never be seen. Writers crafting stories that explored the depths of human experience. Your analysis focused on our wars and our destruction, but you ignored our art, our music, our literature. We create not because we must, but because we choose to find beauty in existence. A delegate from the crystal rings, its faceted surface gleaming, spoke up. Art is a luxury that serves no practical purpose. It is a waste of resources that could be better allocated to survival and advancement. Marcus smiled, and several delegates recoiled slightly at the expression. Human smiles, he had learned, were often misinterpreted by species that had evolved different facial structures or no faces at all. That is exactly my point. We create beauty for no reason other than the joy of creation. We write songs that make us cry, paint pictures that capture moments of wonder, tell stories that help us understand what it means to be alive. These things serve no practical purpose, yet they are what make life worth living. The chamber grew restless as delegates began to murmur among themselves. Marcus could sense their confusion, their inability to understand why he was presenting what they saw as evidence of human weakness as if it were strength. He pressed on, knowing that he was only beginning to reveal the true nature of his defense. You have told us about our environmental destruction, and again, you are correct. We have damaged our world through ignorance and greed. But you have not mentioned the millions of humans who dedicate their lives to healing that damage, who work to preserve what remains of our natural heritage. They receive no reward for this work beyond the satisfaction of knowing they are doing what is right. The displays showed images of humans working to clean polluted rivers, replanting forests, and protecting endangered species. These people understand that they will not live to see the full results of their efforts. They plant trees that will take decades to mature, clean up contamination that will take generations to fully heal, protect animals that may never recover from the damage already done. They do this work because they believe in something larger than themselves. Marcus paused, consulting his notes. You have spoken of our wars and our violence, but you have not mentioned our peacekeepers, our medics, our humanitarian workers. In every conflict, there are humans who risk their lives to help others, who choose to heal rather than harm, who stand between the innocent and those who would hurt them. The images changed to show medics treating wounded soldiers from both sides of a conflict, aid workers distributing food in war zones, and peacekeepers standing guard over refugee camps. These people could choose safety, could choose to protect only their own people, could choose to ignore the suffering of others. Instead, they choose to help, often at great personal cost. Your species, the Arbiter interjected, produces both the healers and the warriors. You create the problems and then claim credit for attempting to solve them. This is not wisdom, it is madness. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. You are right that we create our own problems. But consider this, we are also the only species that has the capability to create those problems and yet chooses not to. Every day, billions of humans make the choice not to hurt others, not to take what they want by force, not to let their fears and anxiety control their actions. We are violent by nature, yet most of us choose peace. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. You see our capacity for violence as a weakness, but I see it as what makes our choice for peace meaningful. A being that cannot choose to harm others has not truly chosen to help them. A species that has eliminated the possibility of conflict has not achieved peace. They have simply eliminated choice. He gestured to the assembled delegates. How many of you have the capacity to choose evil? How many of you could decide tomorrow to hurt someone else simply because you wanted to? How many of you still struggle with the temptation to put your own needs above the needs of others? The silence that followed was profound. Marcus could sense the discomfort of beings who had long ago eliminated such struggles from their existence. We have not eliminated our capacity for evil, he continued, because we believe that goodness without choice is meaningless. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every choice to help rather than harm is made by beings who could choose differently. The displays showed more images of human sacrifice and dedication, parents caring for disabled children, young people dedicating their lives to helping the elderly, individuals donating organs to strangers, communities coming together to help those in need. These actions are not programmed responses or evolutionary imperatives. They are choices made by conscious beings who have decided that the welfare of others matters as much as their own. Marcus closed his tablet and looked directly at the arbiter. You have presented evidence of our failures, and I acknowledge all of it. But I would ask you to consider this. We are a species that has learned to love, to sacrifice, to create beauty, and to choose goodness even when it costs us dearly. We have preserved what many of you have discarded in your pursuit of perfection. Marcus's voice grew stronger as he continued his defense, his words cutting through the chamber's air like a blade through silk. The assembled delegates had expected him to crumble under the weight of evidence against his species, but instead, he stood taller, his presence somehow filling the vast space despite his simple appearance. You have judged us harshly, he said, his eyes moving from one alien representative to another, but I have spent considerable time studying each of your civilizations. I have learned about your histories, your achievements, and your methods of reaching the advanced state you now enjoy. What I discovered was both fascinating and deeply troubling. The arbiter's crystalline form flickered with what might have been concern. Ambassador Reed, your defense should focus on your own species, not on questioning the tribunal members. My defense, Marcus replied calmly, is based on the fundamental question of what civilization truly means. To answer that question, I must examine not just what humanity has done, but what you have done to achieve your current state. He activated his tablet, and new images appeared in the chamber's displays, showing the histories of the species now sitting in judgment. The Hive Collective, he began, focusing on the insectoid representatives, achieved perfect unity and eliminated conflict within your society. This is presented as a great achievement, and in many ways it is. But you accomplish this by eliminating individual consciousness. Your people no longer have the ability to disagree with the collective will because they no longer possess individual will. You have not solved the problem of selfish behavior. You have eliminated the possibility of choice itself. The Hive Collectives. Representative rose from its position, its multiple voices speaking in perfect harmony. We have achieved what your species cannot, perfect cooperation and efficiency. We have eliminated the chaos that comes from individual desires. Yes, Marcus agreed. But at what cost? When did any member of your collective last experience the joy of making a personal discovery? When did any individual among you last feel the satisfaction of overcoming a personal challenge? When did any of you last create something purely for the pleasure of creation, without it being approved by the collective consciousness? The questions hung in the air without answer. Marcus continued, you have eliminated war, but you have also eliminated the possibility of true peace, because peace is only meaningful when it is chosen by beings who could choose otherwise. You have eliminated crime, but you have also eliminated the possibility of true virtue, because virtue requires the choice to do right when wrong is possible. He turned to the Scaled Empire's representative, its reptilian features gleaming under the chamber's lights. Your species achieved unity through what you call evolutionary convergence. You eliminated diversity of thought by gradually becoming a single-minded organism. You no longer have individuals in any meaningful sense, only specialized body parts of a larger whole. This is efficient, the Scaled Empire's representative hissed, its voice carrying the authority of millions of years of evolution. We have eliminated the waste that comes from competing perspectives. You have eliminated waste, Marcus acknowledged, but you have also eliminated the possibility of growth. When did your species last develop a genuinely new idea? When did you last create something that surprised even yourselves? When did you last solve a problem in a way that no one had anticipated? He paused, watching the creature's expression shift. You have achieved stability, but you have also achieved stagnation. You have become perfect at being what you are, but you have lost the ability to become anything else. The delegate from the Void Nebula rippled with what might have been irritation. Your accusations are baseless. We have achieved perfect efficiency by eliminating wasteful emotions and focusing only on rational thought. Marcus turned to face the gaseous being, his expression sad rather than accusatory. You have eliminated fear, anger, and hatred, and those are admirable achievements. But you have also eliminated love, wonder, and hope. You have created a society of beings who can analyze and compute but who no longer experience the joy of discovery or the satisfaction of emotional connection. The chamber grew restless as delegates began to murmur among themselves. Marcus could sense their discomfort, their growing realization that his defense was not what they had expected. He pressed on, knowing that he was approaching the heart of his argument. Each of you has achieved a form of perfection, he continued. But that perfection has come at the cost of what makes consciousness valuable. You have eliminated the problems that come with individual choice, but you have also eliminated choice itself. You have created societies that function perfectly, but you have done so by removing the very qualities that make existence meaningful. The arbiter's form pulsed with increasing brightness. You speak of choice and individual will as if they are virtues, but your own history shows where such things lead. Your species has used its freedom to choose violence, destruction, and chaos. Yes, Marcus said simply, and we have also used our freedom to choose love, creation, and sacrifice. The capacity for evil is the price we pay for the capacity for good. The possibility of making wrong choices is what makes right choices meaningful. He activated his tablet again, and the displays showed more scenes of human achievement, scientists working late into the night to solve problems that might help strangers, artists creating beauty that would outlast their own lives, individuals choosing to help others even when it costs them dearly. You see our wars and call us violent, Marcus continued, but you miss the fact that most humans, most of the time, choose not to fight. You see our environmental destruction and call us careless, but you miss the millions of people who dedicate their lives to healing the damage. You see our social problems and call us chaotic, but you miss the countless individuals who work every day to make their communities better. He walked closer to the assembled delegates, his simple human form, somehow commanding their attention despite its obvious physical limitations. The difference between us is not that we are more violent or more destructive than you were. The difference is that we have chosen to remain what you once were and chose to abandon. We have kept our capacity for individual choice even though it sometimes leads to conflict. We have preserved our ability to love even though it sometimes leads to pain. We have maintained our capacity for hope even though it sometimes leads to disappointment. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Marcus continued, his voice filled with quiet conviction. You judge us for being imperfect, but perfection is not the same as value. You have created societies that function without conflict, But you have done so by eliminating the very qualities that make consciousness worth having. You have solved the problem of evil by eliminating the possibility of good. A delegate from the crystal ring spoke up, its faceted surface reflecting the chamber's lights. You suggest that our advancement is somehow less valuable than your primitiveness. This is illogical. I suggest, Marcus replied, that advancement without choice is not advancement at all, but a form of death. You have created perfect societies, populated by beings who can no longer surprise themselves, who can no longer grow beyond what they were designed to be, who can no longer experience the joy of making a free choice to do good. He paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of species that had gathered to judge humanity. You call us primitive, but we are what you were before you forgot how to be truly alive. We are messy and chaotic and sometimes terrible, but we are also capable of genuine love, real sacrifice, and true creativity. We can still choose to be better than we are, and that choice makes us more advanced than any of you. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the soft hum of life support systems. Marcus had not just defended humanity. He had challenged the very foundations of what these advanced civilizations considered progress. He had suggested that their greatest achievements might actually be their greatest failures, that their perfection might be a form of death rather than life. The Arbiter's crystalline form dimmed slightly, as if the being inside was struggling with concepts it had not considered in millennia. Around the chamber, delegates whispered among themselves in languages that predated human civilization, grappling with questions they had thought were settled long ago. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates processed the implications of Marcus's words. The careful order that had governed the tribunal for thousands of years crumbled as beings who had not questioned their own assumptions in millennia suddenly found themselves confronting uncomfortable truths about their own civilizations. The Hive, Collective's representative, stood abruptly, its multiple voices speaking in discord for the first time in recorded history. This is unacceptable. We have achieved perfect harmony, perfect efficiency, perfect unity. We have eliminated suffering and conflict from our society. And in doing so, Marcus replied calmly, you have eliminated the possibility of joy, because joy comes from overcoming challenges, from making choices, from connecting with others as individuals rather than as parts of a collective. You have created a society where no one can suffer, but also where no one can truly live. The Scaled Empires. Representative coiled its massive form, displaying the aggressive postures that its species had not used in millions of years. You dared to suggest that our evolution was a mistake? We have become something greater than the sum of our parts. You have become something other than conscious beings. Marcus said, his voice filled with sadness rather than accusation. You have become a single entity that remembers what it was like to be many individuals, but can no longer experience the wonder of separate minds coming together in cooperation. You have gained efficiency, but you have lost the beauty of diversity. The delegate from the Void Nebula pulsed with agitation, its gaseous form rippling, with energy patterns that had not been seen since its species achieved emotional stability. We have eliminated the irrationality that plagued our ancestors. We make decisions based on logic and efficiency, not on primitive emotional responses. And when did you last feel wonder at the beauty of a sunset? Marcus asked. When did you last experience the satisfaction of helping another being purely because you wanted to? When did you last create something beautiful for no other reason than the joy of creation? You have gained rational thought, but you have lost the emotional depth that makes rational thought meaningful. The chamber's translator system struggled to keep up with the growing cacophony of voices as delegates began to argue among themselves. Species that had not disagreed about anything in centuries suddenly found themselves questioning fundamental assumptions about their own societies. The careful diplomatic protocols that governed interspecies relations began to break down as beings confronted the possibility that their greatest achievements might be their greatest losses. Marcus stood at the center of the chaos, his simple human form somehow anchoring the swirling confusion around him. He waited for the noise to subside, knowing that the questions he had raised could not be answered quickly or easily. When relative quiet returned, he continued his defense. "You have accused us of being primitive," he said, "but I would argue that we are what you were before you chose to abandon the qualities that made you truly conscious. We are what you could have remained if you had chosen to solve your problems without sacrificing your souls. We are not primitive. We are what you were before you forgot how to be truly alive." The Arbiter's crystalline form had dimmed significantly, its inner light flickering as if the being was struggling with concepts it had never considered. "Your argument is disturbing," it admitted. "You suggest that our advancement has come at a cost we did not recognize. But surely the elimination of suffering and conflict is worth any price." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Suffering and conflict are not diseases to be cured. They are part of what makes consciousness valuable. A being that cannot suffer cannot truly appreciate joy. A society that has eliminated the possibility of conflict has also eliminated the possibility of genuine cooperation, because cooperation only has meaning when individuals choose to work together despite their differences." He activated his tablet one final time, and the displays showed scenes from across human history, moments of genuine heroism where individuals had chosen to sacrifice themselves for others, artists creating masterpieces despite poverty and hardship, scientists pursuing knowledge that would benefit humanity long after their deaths, ordinary people making extraordinary choices to help those in need. "This is what you have lost," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "The ability to choose to be good when being evil would be easier. The capacity to love someone who cannot love you back. The willingness to sacrifice. Immediate pleasure for long-term benefit, not because you are programmed to do so, but because you have decided is right. The courage to create something beautiful in a world that often seems ugly, not because beauty serves any practical purpose, but because consciousness without beauty is meaningless." A delegate from the Singing Worlds, a species known for their mathematical precision and logical perfection, spoke hesitantly. "But surely the chaos and violence that comes with individual choice outweighs any benefits. Your wars have killed billions. Your environmental destruction threatens your entire planet." "Yes," Marcus agreed, "and our individuals have also saved billions. Our artists have created beauty that enriches every life it touches. Our scientists have unlocked secrets of the universe and shared them freely. Our ordinary people have chosen love over hatred, hope over despair, creation over destruction, billions of times every day. The same capacity that allows us to make terrible choices also allows us to make wonderful ones." The chamber fell silent as delegates struggled with the implications of his words. Marcus could see the confusion in their various forms of expression, the dawning realization that their perfect societies might be missing something essential. He pressed on, knowing that this moment might be his only chance to make them understand. "You see our conflicts and call them evidence of our unfitness for civilization," he continued, "but I see them as evidence of our vitality. We fight because we care deeply about things that matter to us. We argue because we have different perspectives and the courage to defend them. We struggle because we have not given up on the possibility of becoming better than we are." He gestured to the assembled delegates. "How many of you still have the capacity to be surprised by your own choices? How many of you can still experience the satisfaction of overcoming a personal weakness? How many of you can still feel the joy of connecting with another conscious being as an individual rather than as part of a collective or system?" The questions hung in the air without answers. Marcus could see the discomfort in the delegates' postures, the realization that they had traded away things they had not even realized they were losing. He delivered his final argument with quiet conviction. "We are not asking to join your civilization. As it is," he said, "we are offering you the chance to remember what consciousness can be when it retains the freedom to choose, the capacity to love, and the courage to hope. We are not primitive. We are what you were before you chose perfection. Over meaning, efficiency over beauty, certainty over wonder." Marcus closed his tablet and stood quietly, his defense complete. Around him, the greatest minds in the galaxy struggled with concepts they had not considered in millennia. The silence stretched on as beings who had thought they had achieved the ultimate form of civilization grappled with the possibility that they had instead achieved the ultimate form of death. The Arbiter was the first to speak, its voice uncertain for the first time in thousands of years. The Tribunal will recess to consider these arguments. This is unprecedented. The crystalline being paused, its form flickering with something that might have been confusion or curiosity. Ambassador Reed, your defense has raised questions that we had not anticipated. Questions that may require us to reconsider not just humanity's fitness for membership, but the very nature of what we have built here. As the formal session adjourned, delegates began to approach Marcus individually. The representative from the Crystal Rings was among the first, its faceted surface reflecting the chamber's lights in patterns that suggested deep thought. You have suggested that our logical perfection might be a form of limitation. This is a concept we had not considered. Tell me, when humans create art that serves no practical purpose, what do they experience? A delegate from the Singing Worlds joined the conversation, its mathematical mind struggling with concepts that could not be quantified. You speak of love as if it were valuable, despite its inefficiency. Can you explain how an emotion that often leads to irrational behavior could be considered an advantage? More and more delegates gathered around Marcus, asking questions that revealed how much they had lost in their pursuit of perfection. They wanted to understand what it meant to choose to help someone who could not help you in return, to create beauty that would outlast your own life, to hope for things that might never come to pass. They were rediscovering concepts their species had abandoned long ago, seeing them through the eyes of a people who had chosen to preserve them despite the costs. The Hive Collective's representative stood apart from the others, its multiple voices speaking in harmonies that had grown more complex during the course of Marcus's defense. We had not considered that our unity might come at the cost of individuality. We had thought that eliminating individual desire was purely beneficial. Your words suggest otherwise. Marcus smiled, and this time the expression was understood and appreciated rather than feared. Individuality is not the enemy of unity, he said. True unity comes when individuals choose to work together despite their differences, not when differences are eliminated. The most beautiful music comes from different instruments playing in harmony, not from everyone playing the same note. As the hours passed, more delegates approached with questions that revealed a growing hunger for something they had lost without realizing it. They wanted to understand what it meant to struggle with moral choices, to feel the satisfaction of personal growth, to experience the wonder of discovering something new about themselves or their universe. The Speaker of the Council, the being of living starlight who had begun the proceedings, approached Marcus as the chamber began to empty. Ambassador Reed, your defense has accomplished something we had not thought possible. You have made us question assumptions we had not examined in millions of years. The Tribunal will reconvene in one standard cycle to render its decision, but I suspect that decision will be unlike any we have made before. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of what had transpired. I hope that whatever you decide, you will remember that consciousness is not a problem to be solved, but a gift to be cherished. Perfection is not the highest goal, meaning is. Efficiency is not the ultimate value, choice is. As the great chamber emptied, Marcus stood alone among the crystalline walls that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. He had come here expecting to defend humanity's right to join the galactic community, but he had ended up challenging the community to remember what it had lost in its pursuit of advancement. Whether humanity would be accepted remained to be seen, but something more important had happened. The galaxy had been reminded of what it meant to be truly alive.